So Chris doesn't even know. I asked if he knows what this is, and you have no idea what this is about my cousin.
I have no idea.
Zero clue.
Zero.
Okay, Curtis is gonna let us put on our headphones and react, but let me tell him a little bit of brief, especially for the audience, because they're gonna be very confused.
Yeah, I would, because like I had a whole thing where I actually watched an entire episode for 50 minutes, and I had timestamps to go to them, and now I don't.
Well, let me explain. So about 15 to 20, I think it's either 15 years ago or 20 years ago. My brain misserves me. Do you know, Ben?
I don't know this story.
Oh, wow.
I didn't have enough time to look it up.
So 15 or 20 years ago, my cousin was murdered. A real murder. It goes deeper. He was murdered by a witch as a sacrifice, as a human sacrifice.
Did you talk about this on that one episode we did?
I mentioned it, but I never got in too much detail because it's been so long since I've talked about it, and I don't know if I had my story straight. And about a week ago, I get a call from my mom, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, our family's back in the news." And I'm like, "What happened?" And she's like, "Amazon Prime Video, the Oxygen Network, Snapped, Hulu, they just put out a full documentary about it." And she's like, "All our cousins are in it, my aunts, my uncles, all my nephews." And I was like, "No way!" So I saved it for this night, and I watched it the other night, and I got to like watch in detail, watch my cousins talk about it, and I was like, "Oh my!" Because when something crazy happens in your life, you go, "Am I remembering this correctly?" And I watched it back, and Curtis, we found a tape that has like a 14-minute, 11-minute preview of it. It's not the full episode. If you want to watch it, you can go on Amazon Prime Video and buy it for like $2. It's called Angela Sanford.
Can I ask some questions?
Yeah,
before we watch it?
Yeah, go for it.
Like how long ago was this?
About 15 years.
15 years ago. How old was your cousin?
He was 50 at the time.
Oh, he's an older cousin.
So the reason they're older,
50.
so my mom, and you'll hear, and I don't know if they'll say it in this one, my mom has 12 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
I have aunts who are almost 100.
Wow.
So
it's just massive family.
They're massive family.
Yeah, lots of different ages.
So it was a huge thing in our family when it happened, and I was just like, there were so many things that I was trying to remember back. I'm like, did this really happen? You'll hear in this. He was stabbed 28 times.
And where did it happen?
New Mexico. That's where most of my mom's family resides.
Wow.
Yeah, no,
it's crazy.
Bro, when I was watching earlier, it was intense. Because I was trying to cut down the amount of things that we were gonna watch, because it's about a 50-minute documentary. Yeah, you can go right now. Well, as long as the guys got their headphones on, and y'all are ready.
This is an 11-minute. I haven't watched this yet. It's basically on that show Snapped, but this is the condensed version.
Yeah, condensed.
If you guys have questions after, ask me, because obviously I know everything about it now, and I just got to freshly watch it again, the full 50-minute one.
All right, we're starting it.
What's going on? I ran into a girl. She's just wearing her underwear and a pair of socks.
They found a male, and he was unresponsive.
She had stabbed a man who was trying to rape her.
The crime scene contains clues of something even more disturbing and more than one suspect.
They noticed that there was a man that kept peering up over the rocks and looking down.
The weapon was a so-called ceremonial dagger.
It looked like it had some Egyptian markings, more of a fantasy thing. There is what appears to be almost overkill. What the hell is going on here?
And when investigators uncover the truth, it leads them to a killer driven by dark obsessions.
She had 2 different social media accounts. One of those referenced satanic worship. She just became all consumed and obsessed with the occult.
The closer I got, the more hysterical she was panicking about something.
I don't care how tough and crusty of an investigator you are. That's chilling to the bone.
Do you want to see? If you have a question before, that's fine. You can pause through.
It's March 22nd, 2000.
Anyway,
So I haven't seen this show before. This is on Oxygen, you said? Snapped?
So yeah.
Oxygen
is Snapped is a popular show, but Oxygen is who owns it. But it's also on like Amazon Prime Video, Hulu.
I asked because I like watching murder mystery stuff. I watch this all the time.
It's a good one. And you'll
So
quickly learn, they said, oh, like she was raped. You'll quickly learn that's what she said. And you'll see.
Right. I was assuming that right from the beginning. I'm like, oh no, your uncle.
And it's definitely
cousin, not uncle.
It's definitely hard to interrupt when you want to. But if you need to say anything, I'll literally just
you can jump in and ask. There's going to be things where you're like, oh, and I'll want to talk after too, because I've never talked about this publicly.
No, I don't think you have.
Oh, and and remind me after. My parents were just over like 20 minutes before we got here. I didn't know they went and visited the site.
No way.
After, and I'll tell you things that they saw where they were like, holy crap.
So if it's your cousin, it's your mom,
nephew,
their nephew.
Yeah.
No,
on your mom's side.
On my mom's side, and his mom is still alive.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead.
In the foothills outside Albuquerque, New Mexico, spring is in the air, and hikers are enjoying one of the most popular locations in the area, the Copper Trailhead.
Albuquerque is this amazing desert oasis.
I've never heard anybody say that.
In this particular location, you have a lot of people that get off work, and part of their daily routine is to go and exercise, to just go to get away and find a little peace and solitude.
I guess good hair.
But a little before 6 p.m., the serenity is shattered by a disturbing discovery.
Albuquerque 911. What's the address to it's actually up in the open space off of Copper. What's going on over there? I ran into a girl. She's just wearing her underwear and a pair of socks. She said that she had been raped.
We get the call of a woman that is in the foothills that one of the witnesses came upon, and they immediately dispatch officers.
Before police arrive, bystanders have retrieved the woman's clothes from the scene of the crime. Police find the woman further up the trail near an encampment. She identifies herself as 30-year-old Angela Sanford.
The witnesses described that she had been wearing a bikini top, underwear, and socks, and had blood. She claimed that she had been raped and that the person was close by.
Angela doesn't offer further details on the state of her attacker, but the witnesses say that the male is laying unconscious up the trail. After making sure Angela is safe, officers leave her to be treated by paramedics and begin searching the area.
One of the men who was a witness pointed out to where the person who did it was at, and it was up the trail a little, a distance.
Officers found a male laying kind of in the kneeling, praying position almost, with his pants a little undone, and he was unresponsive. Per protocol and for officer safety, he was handcuffed, and then they rolled him over onto his back, and that's when they saw all the stab wounds. He had stab wounds on his chest, and it looked like on his face and in his neck as well. Paramedics were called out to the scene, and they were the ones that actually pronounced him as deceased. He had a wallet on him, and we identified the deceased person that we had in custody as 50-year-old Joe Leyva from Albuquerque.
Detectives and the assigned prosecutor are called to the puzzling scene.
As soon as I arrived, one of the detectives told me that it was their understanding that a woman had stabbed a man who was trying to rape her. Myself and the detectives went up to the crime scene to do a walkthrough. And the first thing you see, of course, is the decedent right there on the ground, handcuffed behind his back. There was a rope on the ground to the right. There was also a dagger on the ground. In the area, there are some people who are just walking through, doing their normal hiking. There are a few witnesses who are standing around waiting to be talked to, including Miss Sanford.
They kept the witnesses there at the scene and started interviewing them immediately.
But to seasoned detectives, The crime scene simply doesn't add up.
Her story was confusing. The whole thing was bizarre. I have a woman that claims that she was raped. She has blood on her. And this man has been stabbed numerous times. And there is what appears to be almost overkill that doesn't fit an act of self-defense. What the hell is going on here?
The officers told my mother early in the AM that my father had passed. I remember just breaking down, falling to my knees. We didn't even know what happened.
He was a UFC fighter.
So we
by the
get
way.
the impression
that would be one of your
when we
second
say
cousins,
that
then, right?
somebody
His son.
snapped. The first thing that we think of is, the heat of passion. There was something instantaneously that drove somebody to do the unthinkable. But there are cases, and this is likely one of them, where Miss Sanford was dealing with probably a lot of personal issues. And while that snap wasn't instantaneous, it was almost like bending a bar and bending a bar until the point that the bar breaks. And at that point, she finds herself in the mountains, in the foothills with Mr. Leyva, and she murders him in cold blood.
I feel for the family of Mr. Leyva. They lost a good man. And it should not have happened that way at all. It really should not. As far as Angela goes, I felt she was a little conniving, and I want people out there to know that there are investigators out there who will go above and beyond to solve cases like this, so that the murderers actually do get what they deserve. And in this case, I felt Angela got what she deserved. So
looking back now,
so it almost is like they cut out the rest.
I believe we did the best we could.
This sounds
in that
like
case. I think that
there's my cousin.
Getting that conviction was very important.
You can
wait. Is this a condensed version of it?
100%. You can pause it.
To
We're
the
just talking over
community.
them. So basically, it sounds like they didn't want to on this trailer because we didn't get to watch this yet. Obviously, the Oxygen Network took the whole meat of it and just said, you need to go watch it. So they cut out everything in the middle and just said the end. She basically went to jail. So you're going to have a lot of questions. What do you want to know what happened?
Well, I want to know why they were up in the mountains to begin with. What the heck? Why were they out there?
So they were friends and he was helping her get a job is what they say in the show. Come to find out, like that's what they were talking about. That's what their text messages were, is he was looking to help her to get a job. He was like a pastor.
Did they have a sexual relationship?
No.
They didn't.
Nope. They don't even refer to it in this. Normally in something like this too, I was like, oh man, I wonder if they're going to like refer to like, oh my, he was doing something he should have, but it was never even like implied.
Was there a vehicle nearby?
They don't say. Probably.
Because how did they get out there? Did she drive?
It's a popular hiking trail.
Okay, so when I was watching earlier, the boyfriend drops her off and then he meets her or something of that nature.
Yeah, they weren't like in a private location and inviting. They even said in the beginning, one of the most popular hiking trails there is.
But at night?
No, day.
Oh, okay.
They were daytime, midday.
Oh, okay. I thought they said that they found her at night. It was during the day.
During the day.
Gotcha.
The interview and like the witnessing and all that stuff took it.
So something you missed is it was so obvious to, like they were saying in this, so obvious to them it wasn't what she said. First of all, she said she's raped. They found her clothes. It was all perfectly folded. Yes, when you get raped, you take off your clothes and fold it in the corner. Then the ceremonial dagger.
I do in prison. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Then she like undid his pants to make it look like,
How did she get him in that position? That's such a weird position. They said he was kneeling.
Probably fell.
Praying, yeah.
Like just they're kneeling, like dead.
Well, that's what they were saying in this. Is like the easiest time to murder someone is when they're not expecting to be murdered.
So she just started stabbing
like it doesn't matter if you were going against my daughter Kinsley and she trusts you. So you guys are just walking and she has a knife and right when you're walking goes right into your neck.
She must have stabbed him in the back, and he fell to his knees, and then she probably.
I think she went neck. Is from what I understand where it started.
Yeah.
First,
was it
maybe.
the way that they described it? Huh?
27, 28 stab wounds? Is that what they said?
They said they refer to it as 20 plus, but like
Well, so my mom and dad went, and obviously they know everything. What happened? I guess they said that 20 plus above, and the reason they say that is because you can tell a lot of the stab wounds were like multiple in the same area, so it like reopens it. You can't really count when it's going multiple in the same area.
But she said it was like 2 to 3 times, and that was for her to get away. And then they were like, there's literally like 30 stab wounds on this guy.
Yeah, because if it was self-defense, you would just do 1 or 2 stabs.
Yep.
And run. Right,
100%,
and then refold your clothes.
There stabbing.
Yeah, there's some emotion if there's dozens of stab wounds.
Well, yeah, and I'll tell you about that. And obviously, stab wounds too. I mean, we watch true crime stuff. What's the number one place you're gonna have wounds if you're trying to defend yourself? Arms and hands.
Yeah,
none. So obviously, you're in a public place, nobody's around, probably looking around. The minute there's nobody around, go nuts and walk away.
Do you think so? Was she? Did they talk like, was she having mental issues like schizophrenia or something like that?
No, basically what happens is they found out. So like on her MySpace and multiple things, she was, into satanic stuff. And she was basically doing what she thought was a ritual. She thought she was doing some like honorary Wiccan day, which funny enough, in the end, not funny obviously, but in the end, she actually like did it on the wrong day. Like she thought she was doing it like on some.
And did it for the wrong people. Like they said, they were like, it's not even what it's about.
And I guess like the Wiccan, like literally the Wiccan witch community
nature.
was some of the most anti-her people out there. They were like the most outspoken, like that is not what we do. And the craziest part is, so when they found her phone, they entered his number, they had his phone number, so they could get their conversation, see what they're talking about. And his name was saved as human sacrifice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So from the day they started talking,
you would think if you're going to have a whole scheme, you wouldn't do something like
what
that.
What a nutcase she was, though, huh?
Yeah.
That's some craziness. For no reason, to some stupid ceremony.
Zero reason.
That sucks for the family, your family.
Yeah, it was crazy. They're like all like, basically their whole family is like all like pastors' kids and like totally, helping type of people, community. And even in this, it was just weird to watch, because when I watched it back, I hadn't, talked to these cousins in forever, but it was just so weird. They don't show up, but they showed a bunch of my cousins. They were even showing like family photos and stuff. Like they gave it to them so I could see all like my aunts and uncles. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. But my parents, so my dad was telling me that after this happened, they went out there to that trail. And my dad said when he went there, there was like people that they weren't there at the time, but they like put like upside down crosses and were like drawing like upside down crosses on like where he died and stuff.
Like almost like ceremonializing it kind of thing.
People fantasize about that weird crap like that.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Yeah, the bummer part was when I saw the ending of like what they charged her with was it was 2nd degree murder instead of first, because it was 100% premeditated.
100% premeditated. You don't save someone's phone number as human sacrifice.
And
she's still in there now? She's still in prison?
Yeah, I believe so, for 20 years.
I think she may have just be out by now then. Maybe that's why they put this out. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, all I know is I was pissed for the family because she only got 20 years and not prison, like life in prison. 100%.
Yeah.
And what they were saying in the initial episode, I thought this actually would show at least like the highlights of it, but it didn't. They also said that she had contacted him. Like before, she was saying in the interview, like, oh, he contacted me. He wanted to meet me out here.
Trying to make it sound like he's a weirdo, basically.
And, obviously his uncle was a practicing Catholic in religion, like very rigorously, and so clearly they wanted to help her.
I think Christian. I don't know. I can't
no, they said Catholic.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, they said Catholic. And then, but like that in itself, I was like, man, like even just the initial reaction to her pulling him out, like how can you think that he would do something like that?
Well, it's just crazy too, like how she'd obviously been planning this for a long time, like how poorly it was planned for being planned. Like you're in a public area, middle of day, like Ben said, you have the name saved as sacrifice. Like you're doing you folded your clothes, you brought a ceremonial dagger, you overkilled, like the cop said, right? Self-defense, like you said, you block, stab, run. right? It was the complete.
It was like 2010, right? If it was 15 years ago.
It was 2015, maybe.
15. I mean, how many crime scene shows have been on by then? I mean, haven't you seen anything on how to cover up a murder?
Oh, 100%. You know, it's just.
I mean, the story of her saying, "Hey, I got raped," is, you know, you're out there with a guy and I got raped is pretty good. Get out of, maybe they won't find me
100%.
kind of thing. It's not that out of the question, right? So I give it to the detectives to look a lot more into it and to find out that this was not adding up right.
Yeah, I think too, like right away, I think the folded clothes was one of the biggest indicators. I mean, when someone's raped, horrible topic, but it's like you're obviously going to be fighting, right? Ripped clothes, thrown somewhere hidden, not folded there at the site. It's like, what are you even...
I give them credit, those detectives, because you could easily just be like, "Oh man, girl got raped. God, this guy's a rapist," and then like it's kind of like job over. Well, we already know what happened, but for them to look into that,
well, she also had she also, well, now that they put it in perspective, she had another case kind of similar to that where she accused another person or another two people of rape, and and that didn't stick.
Oh,
they dropped that case.
That probably meant a lot too, and they started looking into her.
Yeah, because she didn't want to take the interviews for them or anything like that to create statements. So it was like all that stuff that she said just pretty much got dropped.
Yeah, and I think it was just like, you know, early days of like internet media and social media. So maybe one of her biggest flaws was, you know, not understanding that that's now obviously that's something you can immediately look up, is type in one of our names and see what they're into, what they do. And for her, it was like early days MySpace. I think that's what it was that they found. And we're like, oh, whoa, she's like really into like, not knocking anybody, anything, but like really into like witchcraft and Satan and all this stuff. Like, okay, maybe we should look a little.
Do you think
I'll knock Satanism.
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's okay. Please. I'm not saying is good. I'm saying do what you want, but yeah, I'm not going to say.
It's just gnarly to think that like people walk the earth like that disturbed to where they have to resort in that type of aspect.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, it's just it's so much of its influence, right? All it takes is someone to like, you're a young girl, vulnerable, and all of a sudden you go down a website and see a guy talking about this, and that's interesting, and before you know it, you're like, that's interesting, before you know it, you're like, ooh, that's kind of my identity, right? And that happens to some people that go down wormholes, and especially if they're mentally unstable, they're so easily.
Yeah, that's why I ask about the schizophrenia.
Probably. Like, I'm sure there was plenty.
They tried to claim that in court, that she was crazy, but she had nobody backing her, no witnessing statements or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, schizophrenia it's as real as it gets. I don't know if you guys ever had any friends that have had schizophrenia over the years? No. I've had quite a few. You guys haven't had any?
Yeah, one.
I had,
and he's actually in prison right now.
I had a good friend of mine that I went to college with that became full blown schizophrenic. He's not here anymore. He ended up passing. Went from normal to just not normal. Like, heard voices and dogs talking to him and all sorts of crazy voices in his head. And I have another guy with a group of friends. We were just talking about another buddy that's kind of like, is he getting schizophrenic? Like, a lot of weird things and thoughts going on.
And it's tough because then it's like you as a person, you're like, I can't help them. It's too tough.
No, you can't do anything.
At that point.
I stayed friends with, his name was Don. I was really good friends with him, and I stayed friends with him long after college. Kind of followed, like, he couldn't really function. He couldn't maintain a job after that. And he lived at his mom's house, and I mean, literally would be like, yeah, that's talking to me, like pointing at things, and be like, really, Don, what's it saying? He's like, not good stuff like that, like full blown schizophrenia. But he didn't really, I'd be like, Don, do you know, like, anything wrong with you? Like, we'd have conversations and he'd be like, no, I don't think I'm okay. Like, he couldn't acknowledge that, like, it's a weird disease.
Try to, like, reach out for help from like a professional.
Oh, he had all sorts of help. Yeah, he was on medication. He had all sorts of help, but like that is, I think it's a disease. It's a crazy disease.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Any crazy mental disorder sucks because it's like they don't know, right? They're the one in the room has no idea. Like I say, they don't know they're the crazy one. You know?
Yeah, he didn't know he was crazy.
Though, too.
Don didn't. No, he had no idea that he was schizophrenic.
Some serial killers and stuff will. They'll be like, I know, but I like it. You know,
yeah, like that's their rush.
Like, that girl.
I just wonder, I bring up that, like, a lot of these killers have voices in their head that tell them to do it, right?
Well, which
I think is just the devil, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just Satan in your head, maybe. Yeah.
That's what the devil does. He tempts you to do stupid things.
And we all have a voice in our head, right? And sometimes it says do good things. Most of the time we do good things. Maybe it says bad things sometimes, but it's when it takes over And then that's like the devil in my opinion.
Well, that's anything.
Like,
a lot of people say, I'm not perfect. I can't be a whatever, name your religion. I can't be a Christian. I'm, I have all these thoughts. And like, well, everybody in the world has thoughts. Everybody looks, it's the acting on those thoughts.
Correct.
Is what makes it bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really want to punch Curtis right
Yeah.
now, but I'm not going to do it.
Oh, man.